Hello, Van Talmage here, and it's the middle of October, and it's election season. As most of you probably know, I was supervisor from 2003 through 2007. What I would like to do today is tell you the story of Jack Campisi as I knew it during my time of supervisor. I wouldn't normally do this because I'm not really into any kind of negative campaigning, but Jack Campisi is running for town board, and it seems appropriate that I should tell you, the public, what some of my experiences with Jack was, because basically I found him to be not in the best interest of Milan. Let's just put it that way. Not in the best interest of Milan. Now, in order to get this story started, let me go back to approximately the end of 2002. And at that time, the gravel mine was a big issue in Milan, and certain people, primarily Pauline Clark and Bill Jeffway, came forward and started raising the issue, and it became an issue in the campaign of 2003 because Mr. Jeffries, who had been supervisor at that time, had been very pro-mine and was trying to bring the mine into the northwest corner of Milan. Ms. Clark and Mr. Jeffway and others decided to get involved in politics, and because I had a long experience in Milan and felt like I should get in politics, I joined their cause and started talking to them, and they, along with Robert Peters, became the Democratic Party in Milan in the year 2003. Now, what happened was, along around April of that year, Jack Campisi joined our efforts. Jack Campisi and Al Labruto, to be exact, because Al always followed around where Jack was. And Jack got interested because he's a long-time political person in Milan, has a long history himself, and he got involved and started to help run our campaign. Now, the first point I want to make here is that Jack was offered the chance to run again. He had been in town public office back in the 80s, and in 2003 he declined. He said he had no interest in running and didn't want to be a part of it, be actually running, but he definitely was a part of the campaign crew and got very interested because politics, to be honest, I think excites Jack. So what happened was, as he got more and more involved in our campaign, he actually brought Al Labruto into the ticket. What happened was Pauline and I had decided we would run for town board, and then Pauline, probably with Jack's urging, had convinced me that I was the only one who was really available to run for supervisor. So I said I would run for supervisor, and immediately Al Labruto said he'd run for town board, and we had our ticket. Now, this ticket is important because this is the gist of the story. As you'll see, it was Pauline and Al and I running as a new slate, offering some new issues, or looking at the town and trying to, let's say, put it on a different direction. Clearly, we were anti-mine at that time. This was an industrial gravel mine, and if you went and looked at pictures of these and you knew how they acted, they cannot be considered really good for a town. I mean, a large-scale mine with lots of noise and dust and traffic. Well, you know the story. So we ran on that, but we were also interested in, the future of Milan in general. And by that I mean, there was, at that time, Durst had come forward and talked about their Carvel project, and you'll recall back in 2003 the real estate boom was still strong, very strong, and there was a lot of developmental pressure on Milan. So the heart of our campaign was we were trying to look for a new future, or a better future of Milan, so that the treasures of Milan, the beauty of Milan, the wonderful place that we all live in, could be maintained and carried into the future, and that by doing so we protected our own homes and our town, but we also made it available for the future, our kids, that kind of thing. So we ran basically on a two-part program, and in fact these two parts are still the issue in politics today. Part number one is how you manage the town, meaning the town finances, the town budget, the various aspects of town. That is in fact the number one issue for any government, is to manage their budget correctly. And Milan's budget is getting close to $2 million a year, and so you do want to take care of it properly. The other issue, as I said, was the future of Milan, meaning the developmental pressures and what that meant to and various things. So that became our campaign, and I wanted to stress the positive aspects of looking towards the future and taking care of it. Dr. Campisi basically wanted to attack Mr. Jeffries because he thought finances was the only thing people cared about in town, and he thought Mr. Jeffries had basically run amok. In fact, Jack went and looked and researched what Jim Jeffries had done with the Town Hall edition and discovered that he had spent $1 million, actually $1.3 million, with interest $1.5 million for an addition to the Town Hall, which had not been properly approved and seemed to be a little bit expensive. So Jack's campaign, and he was still influential, the grand old man of Milan politics he was at that time, definitely wanted to spend the campaign attacking Mr. Jeffries, and I wanted to spend the campaign talking about the positive aspects, but bringing up some of the issues that Mr. Jeffries had caused. Well, long and the short of it is that we won. All right, the town seemed ready for a change. We presented what I thought was a reasonable alternative. So Pauline and Al and I got into town, and right away, Al approached me with having what I called backroom meetings with Dr. Campisi about what to do. I admit to being a little naive. I thought, well, I was elected supervisor. We don't have to have backroom meetings. We want to be very open about everything, and I refused to do that. I say naive because, again, any kind of political organization does have a set of advisors, and you do have discussions, and they don't always have to be considered backroom discussions. But anyway, we got started, and again, Mr. Jeffries had left us a monumental problem in that he had not left us a set of books as to what was going on. He had taken all the computer records off the computers, and we had to kind of put together the status of Milan's finances in the start of the year 2004. Now, in this time, Dr. Campisi's thought was, well, we just should reconstruct the books. Well, it turned out Mr. Jeffries gave us the books back within about a month in early February, and we started looking at them, and we had arranged with a consultant or an accountant to discuss what was going on and be able to get things back in order. And what happened, and this is an interesting point, what happened was I had a meeting with the accountant, and Dr. Campisi would have liked to have gone along, but he was in Albany, I think, that morning and didn't go. He got angry at me. This is 8 weeks into my term, barely getting started. He got angry with me that I went to talk to the accountant by myself. I was the supervisor, chief fiduciary officer, and that the accountant and I made a decision which was to use Mr. Jeffries' books and correct them, as opposed to Dr. Campisi's approach, which redo the books altogether. All right? Now, the reason our position was correct was that Mr. Jeffries was the fiduciary officer. His books were the record, and we had to start from there. Seemed like a reasonable decision, and of course I think it was the right decision, and the accountants agree that it was the right decisions, and we continued to follow along that course, but Dr. Campisi already got angry at me. And here we've hardly done anything, and he starts belittling me in public. He would get up in subsequent town board meetings and ask me questions to show little things that I didn't know exactly right. He started within 3.5 or 4 months, he started going to the other members of the town board in the opposition party, in particular Mr. Belletto and Mr. Campbell, who were on the board at that time, and telling them all of these things that he thought I was doing wrong, and trying to build a case against me. And of course, because Al Labruta was basically his guy on the board, Al would continue along. And this is the point. Within 6 months, Dr. Campisi had changed the whole dynamic of the town of Milan and made Pauline and I be the minority, as Al basically switched sides within 6 months of being elected and went and did things that the people of Milan had not voted for and had not indicated that that's what they wanted to do. So it changed absolutely the whole dynamic.